In this video, we will be replacing the driver's side front seat belt in this 2008 Hyundai Elantra. We're first going to locate a small circular plastic cover piece located just above the seat belt. And using a small flathead screwdriver, we're going to pop that little plastic cover piece off. And inside there we can see a 10mm bolt, which we need to remove. We can then use our trim removal tools to work that upper trim piece off. And we very carefully want to work that forward at the top. And then we can work our way down very carefully. And we're going to continue on with our trim removal tool all the way down to the base. As we work those trim pieces out, we can take a close look at the connecting points. And if we take a look inside there, we can see that we have two small tabs or clips that connect the top to the bottom. We can work those off. If we pull that trim out, we can start seeing the bottom portion of the seat belt. And with our seat belt assembly exposed, we can remove both our 10mm bolt and 14mm bolt. The lower 14mm bolt does not come all the way out, it just loosens up and then keeps spinning. And that will allow that assembly to come free, minus our wiring harness. If we take a close look at our wiring harness that is connected to the seat belt, we have a small yellow cap. This is the wiring harness retainer. We can take a small flathead screwdriver and work that straight back. Very carefully. And with that wiring harness removed, the lower portion of our belt should be free. We have two additional connection points on our belt, one located up towards the top near your shoulder, and one located all the way down near the floor. Up by our shoulder, we have a 14mm bolt that needs to be removed. And down towards the floor, we also have a trim piece and a 14mm bolt. With my old assembly, I can feed the belt through my trim piece and I was able to find a different unit at the salvage yard. And to clean this before I install it in the vehicle, I'm using Car Guy's multi-surface cleaner, and I'll just saturate that and wipe that down real good. I could probably use a brush and kind of scrub it in as well. And with that cleaned up, we are ready to put our new used seatbelt unit into the vehicle. And to do this, I'm going to start by feeding the seatbelt through that trim panel from the back. And in the vehicle, we can first install our lowermost 14mm bolt, making sure that we start this by hand first, just to prevent it from cross-threading. We can then install our uppermost 14mm bolt. And I'm going to start this by hand as well. Then I'm going to kind of mock up where all these components are going to go, just to make sure I didn't get anything twisted up. And we're looking pretty good. After that, we can connect our wiring harness and set our seatbelt assembly in place. Make sure that retaining clip gets secured. And we can then work through the process of reinstalling both that 10mm and 14mm bolt. And you want to start these by hand to reduce the chance that they get cross-threaded. And at this point, we should be able to go ahead and pull on the seat belt just to make sure that it sounds good. If I pull real hard, it will catch there. So that's looking good. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down that 14mm bolt and install our 10mm bolt. And one additional test, everything's looking good. And at this stage, we are able to reinstall all of our trim components. I'm going to connect my top piece first, getting that lined up with any clips that are in place. Making sure that weather stripping doesn't get pinched. We do want to line up our adjustment lever. Test that out. More weather stripping. And make sure everything's tight. Test out that adjustment again. Test out our seat belt again. We're looking good. We have our lowermost trim cap. And we have our 10mm bolt up at the top as well. I will caution you to not drop this bolt down inside of there. Start it by hand and finish up with a ratchet. And then lastly, our cap. And at this point, this repair is done and the seatbelt is working great again, and everything looks good. Now, one thing to note, the seatbelt will only allow you to pull it out if it is perfectly vertical. So if I pull my seatbelt horizontally or even diagonally, it gets stuck. If I go perfectly vertical, that will allow me to pull the seatbelt out. So as you are working with this, just keep that in mind. It has to be perfectly vertical. If we open this up, we can see a tiny metal ball. This is in part what is activating the belt from getting stuck. That ball does move around in there, so if that ball is not perfectly at the bottom, then it will essentially trigger the seatbelt to get stuck. If we remove that, We have another component in here, and if we remove that, that's what the inside looks like. Now on this we have this small little tab that corresponds to a hole in our components. So if this does come apart, we need to line that up. Then we need to line this up correctly. On the back side we have a couple tabs as well. That should snap into place. And then we have our